of operations. Our essential question is, how do you use the order of operations to evaluate an expression? We have one new vocabulary word, order of operations. And you notice on the note side, it says PE, and then MD in parentheses with an arrow underneath it, and then A and S in parentheses with an arrow underneath that. What the order of operations means is that there's a specific order that you need to follow when you're solving or evaluating a mathematical expression. The P stands for parentheses. So the first thing that you have to do is anything that is inside parentheses. The E stands for exponents. So the second thing that you're going to do is any operations that involve exponents. Third, you're going to multiply or divide from left to right. Those operations are equal, so they're both on the third step, and the arrow underneath is to make sure that you remember that you don't necessarily multiply first, you multiply or divide, you do whichever operations on the left. So that's left to right. And then the last step would be the adding and subtracting, and again, it's left to right. So you don't add before you subtract necessarily. You have to consider those two operations as equal. So add or subtract from left to right. This is something that you should have learned in previous math classes, but what we found is the left to right piece sometimes gets forgotten. Okay, now basics, we want to make sure that you remember how to evaluate powers. Evaluating powers are expressions where we've got a base and we've got an exponent. The base, or the big number, is what's being multiplied times itself. The exponent tells you how many times to multiply that base. So 3 to the second power means 3 times 3, or 9. It does not mean 3 times 2, which is 6. 2 to the fourth power means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So the 4 tells you how many times to multiply that 2 by itself. How many times? So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 to the fourth power is 16. And then 7 to the third power would be 7 times 7 times 7. And if you're not so good at multiplying such large numbers in your head, 7 times 7 is 49. It's okay to write it out and multiply it. 49 times that last 7. 9 times 7 is 63. 4 times 7 is 28. Plus 6 is 34. So 7 to the third power is 343. Now we've got some problems that are a little more complicated. So it says evaluate using the order of operations. I am going to first rewrite the problem, and on your homework we would really like to see you do that. Rewrite the problem and then step-by-step solve it. PEMDAS, parentheses. I don't see any parentheses. Exponents, I don't see any exponents. Multiply and divide from left to right. I see both of those. The one on the left is division, so I have to do this operation first. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Bring down the rest of the problem. Then do your multiplication. 3 times 7 is 21. Then last but not least, you've got adding and subtracting from left to right. So I do my addition, and my final answer is 23. I like to use these little V's to show what operation I'm doing in what order. You don't have to do that on your homework. It's just an organizational method for me. It is definitely not the only way to show what step you're doing in what order. Okay, next problem. Parentheses. Again, I don't see any, but we've got an exponent here. 8 to the second power, 8 times 8 is 64. The rest of my problem, I just bring down. Now, multiply, divide from left to right. I don't see any division. I see just multiplication. 7 times 11 is 77. Bring down the rest of the problem. And now I can add and subtract from left to right. So I'm going to start over on the left with subtraction. 20 minus 7 is 13. Then I'm going to add. 13 plus 64 is 77. 77 minus 77 is 0. So my final answer is 0. Next problem, definitely more complicated than the last ones. Now we've got a big, huge fraction. When you're working with a big, huge fraction, you want to simplify your numerator and simplify your denominator separately. If this problem was written out instead of as a fraction, if it was written out with a division sign, it would look something like this. 4 plus 5 squared, all divided by the denominator, and it would probably have a bracket around it like that. So, solve the numerator first. If I work with the numerator, I've got parentheses up there. So 4 plus 5 to the second power. I have to work parentheses first. So in the parentheses, I add these together and I get 9. Then I do my exponent, 9 to the second power. 9 times 9 is 81. So my numerator simplifies to 81. Next, I am going to simplify my denominator. So I'm going to get rid of this. So simplifying my denominator, I have parentheses there also. So 7 minus 4 is 3. Then the 3 in front of the parentheses, you should recognize means that you're going to multiply. When you have a number written right next to a parenthesis, that's what it means, multiplication. So 3 times 3 is 9. So now I have simplified this. My numerator is 81, my denominator is 9. My last step is to divide those. 81 divided by 9 is 9. So simplify the numerator until it's down to one number. Simplify the denominator until it's down to one number. Divide at the end. Okay, now we've got to do a little plug it in, substitution. Evaluate the algebraic expression using the order of operations. So, a squared, then we've got 3b minus 2ac divided by c, and right here it tells us what a, b, and c are equal to, so we've got to plug those in. So if a is 2, I've really got 2 squared. 3b means 3 times b, so I've got 3 times 6 minus 2ac means 2 times a times c, and then all divided by c, which is 4. Here's my expression. All right, parentheses. Inside the parentheses, I've got a lot going on. So inside the parentheses, I don't see any exponents. I do see multiplication though. So I'm going to have to do all of that multiplication first, because inside the parentheses you still follow the order of operations. 3 times 6 is 18. Then I've got to move over and multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16, then the last thing that I do is subtract. So in those parentheses, I come up with 2. Now I'm going to drop the rest of the problem down around it. So I'll switch colors for you. 2 squared. Now in those parentheses, I've got just 2, and I've got divided by 4. Okay, now I need to do my exponent next. 2 squared is 4. Now I can multiply and divide from left to right. 4 times 2 is 8. Divided by 4 is 2. So my final answer is 2. One more that looks kind of like that, only we've got some brackets. So we've got A and then we've got a bracket, 2B divided by B minus C in parentheses. Close out the bracket. The whole thing is squared out there. Okay, plug it in. A is 4. So 4. B is 6. 2 times 6. B is 6 again. And C is 2. I've plugged them all in. When you have brackets and parentheses, you have to start with the innermost grouping symbol, the innermost. So I have to start inside the parentheses that are inside the brackets. 6 minus 2 is 4. Now, the rest of the problem, I can bring down, and I just eliminated that inner set of parentheses. So I changed the 6 minus 2 into a 4, and I don't need those parentheses anymore. Now work inside the brackets. So we've got parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, left to right, add, subtract, left to right. Okay, inside those brackets, I'm going to have to multiply because it's on the left, and we've got multiplying and dividing. 2 times 6 is 12. And then I can do my division. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now, this is the step that we see a lot of mistakes on, right here. We see so many students want to multiply 4 times 3 because they're thinking left to right. But in our order of operations up here, you see exponents comes before multiplying and dividing. So you have got to do 3 to the second power right here to get 9. And the very last thing that you do is multiply 4 times 9, which is 36. So very, very particular. The order of operations are very particular. So be careful. All right, that's it for our lesson for today. So the summary says using the order of operations to evaluate an expression involves. So you should be able to answer that. We've got a good sentence starter for you. So you should be able to finish using complete sentences, explaining what you've learned in this lesson. And our homework, pages 12 to 15, number 1 to 14, 30 to 35, 61, and 72.